Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we're back to Carcassonne, or Carcassonne. So we have done all of the DLC expansions of this digital version of a board game, except for Winter Edition, which has two different versions, one with the gingerbread man, one without. They have gone from being medieval times with like really no magic or fantasy in it in the first few expansions, and then the last expansion for the main game was the Princess and the Dragon, where you start going to actual fantasy with a fairy and a dragon. And now they've just gone full on Grimm's fairy tales by the looks of it, where you're going to have a gingerbread man. Winter has reached the walls of Carcassonne. Now, just on the name of it, before we go any further, what changes in the tile set, since the tiles don't really have much personality or gameplay elements that up until this point felt like they had anything to do with winter? What changes if something is wintry? Like, the roads would be more dangerous, potentially. Cities would be harder to build, potentially. Like, not a lot of stuff is better in the winter. It almost seems like what this would probably be is just a non-denominational Christmas edition, where you'll see some references to a winter solstice type festival, perhaps not calling it Christmas, but I wouldn't be surprised if the tiles are exactly the same tile set. Maybe mathematically, if you ran an algorithm, there are some tiles that just don't exist in any of the previous game, the main game. And so there might be room to add a few more tiles, and perhaps at that point you might. But if you were going to just add tiles that move the road to the left instead of the right, that would be just an expansion for the main game. There has to be something drastically different here. And I'm having a hard time imagining what it would be. And why keep it anywhere close to the fantasy realm at that point? Why not completely reskin it and have it be in a sci-fi realm? Put it in a like StarCraft, Warhammer 40k type universe, something in the future, Star Trek, Star Wars, anything like that. If you could get the licenses, even better. Or put it in a modern time, that would work also. Or put it in a space theme, so instead of roads you have space routes, instead of cities you have space stations. That would make more sense. Anyways, I could speculate, but I won't. The local animals are here to keep the fellows company, and occasionally the people catch a glimpse of a new character, but a glimpse is all they've ever been able to catch. So, a cold winter has hit Carcassonne. The citizens waste very little time before preparing hot beverages and sweet pastries. Life around Carcassonne slows down. Occasionally people catch a glimpse of a new character, the gingerbread man. The basic rules for Carcassonne remain unchanged. This expansion must be played with Carcassonne Winter Edition. Yeah, every other description, let's just go back to something else. When you go to this, it says it offers more tiles and gameplay options, or offers more strategy, or offers anything at all. Whereas Winter Edition, in this first paragraph, is saying it's offering maybe the Ginger Man. And that's it. The Gingerbread Man offers an additional possibility to score points each time someone draws a Gingerbread Man tile. And it looks like it is just a meeple with a little piece of plastic on his head, which almost makes me wonder if there was just a manufacturing defect when they were making meeples, and they've sold like manufacturing defect pieces. Rules. There is one new meeple introduced in this expansion, the Gingerbread Man. Before starting the game, the Gingerbread Man is placed on the city section of the start tile, so there must be a city section on the start tile, which in most cases that would be true. When a player draws a gingerbread man, they place it in accordance to the regular rules and play their turn as usual, including scoring if applicable. Then they take the gingerbread man and move it to a different incomplete city. That's not a terrible thought as a gameplay mechanic, so that every time there's an empty city, you could potentially have a higher chance of capturing that city, specifically cities, not roads, whereas the magic portal in the previous expansion, the dragon expansion, could let you get roads or fields with your meeple. But take note, you, at least in this digital version of the game, cannot play the Winter Edition with the Dragon and Princess expansion, where it seems to me like that would be kind of a great combination. Having the dragon run around eating and killing meeple, leaving cities unguarded for the gingerbread man to then come in and let you claim it. That feels like that would be a pretty cutthroat, fast-paced way to play. So why separate the Winter Edition out like this? When the gingerbread man leaves the city because another tile with the gingerbread man goes on it has been played, each player with one or more knights in that city scores points. That's different for each of their knights. Each player scores 1 point per tile currently in that city. Coats of arms do not score any points. The knights remain in the city. What are knights? We haven't had knights as a piece. They've been meeple. They've always been called meeple. It's like the person who wrote these instructions didn't even write the previous game's instructions. Unless we are going to actually have a new piece that's a knight. And what's the difference between a knight and a meeple, if that's the case? It would also be interesting, certainly, if you could play the princess and kick off the gingerbread man and remove him. If you could merge those two expansions. When the city with the gingerbread man is completed before regular scoring, every player with one or more knights in the city scores 1 point per tile for each knight they have in that city. This is followed by regular scoring. Finally, the player who completes the city moves the gingerbread man into an incomplete city of their choice. So it seems like they're trying to make it so it focuses in on one specific city. So potentially this could push people to make really big cities. If there are no incomplete cities for the gingerbread man to move, then it stays in the city it currently occupies. If that city is completed, the gingerbread then is removed from the board and will be able to return to play when another gingerbread man is played. Honestly, though, I have to say this expansion feels like it's even smaller than the Abbot, because every other expansion gives you, like, you get a princess, a dragon, and a fairy here. You get inns, and you get 3 different types of resources. You get different types of resources and builders. In this expansion, you get inns and cathedrals in this. The river is just a river. It's pretty generic. So I would say, compared to the river, the Gingerbread Man expansion is kind of more complicated, but the Abbot, I would still say, is more complicated than that. And it really feels like there's no tutorial also, so we'll just have to jump into the game. It really feels like there's not going to be much of a difference if we played without the Gingerbread Man. So let's just start that way. So Winter Edition, no Gingerbread Man. Literally may just be snow tiles. Just a reskin, which, as far as ease of readability, this is pretty awful. And yeah, while we see some like places that might be gardens where the abbot might have been playable, just everything is covered up in snow. It almost feels like the winter edition is intentionally designed to cover up things so that you would not be able to play other things. There's a real question though as to what is this supposed to be. Is this supposed to be just birds or dragons or what? And what are these supposed to be? These are supposed to be like deer. I think these are supposed to be hawks or birds or dragons. This is supposed to be a bear. And we weren't seeing any other animals. What this clearly is doing is setting up for more expansions where they could bring in a new character or new cards that would perhaps synergize more with animals. This looks like a moose type character. This looks like maybe wolves. Or this could be wolves. You'd almost assume that there would be a Santa Claus expansion at some point. Because you could certainly take the dragon concept and make a Santa Claus expansion, and then wherever Santa Claus goes, it would reward people and help people instead of hurt people. But clearly those expansions aren't in existence, at least as far as this digital form of the game. And I would think in a lot of ways they are being fairly ridiculous if they are making the concept that yeah, all we have is regular meeple here. Yeah, I think they're being pretty ridiculous if they were going to try and make the argument that everybody needs to buy the second, the winter edition, because if people fell for that, then they almost certainly would fall for the idea of selling a spring edition or a fall edition also. Like, if we assume that that the main Carcassonne tile set is what season would we assume it to be? I think lean towards assuming that the original Carcassonne would be a spring edition. It's not worth doing. So, yeah, you could definitely have a fall edition and winter, fall, spring. I cannot for the life of me think of the fourth season. Summer. Yeah. So, yeah, the main game could either be a summer edition or it could be a spring edition. That would be fairly believable. Yeah, I guess the main game is summer, would be technically the summer. And so a spring edition would just have more flowers appearing, perhaps a specific type of flower on every single tile. And then fall could have less things. You could potentially have the fields more rainy and muddy in a fall edition, and perhaps break up more roads. Things like that. I have no idea what I'm shooting for here. So I'll just keep on playing. There might be a difference here. If we started at 84, we should start a regular game and just see what the tile set is there. There might be an argument around that idea that because Carcassonne has had so many expansions to it, perhaps there is now a new level of potential base stats that it needs. In the sense that the main Carcassonne game may really just not be anywhere close to 84 tiles, and they want it to be closer to 84 tiles. It might be that originally the Carcassonne game was made so incredibly cheaply, because it is obviously a very cheaply made product in the real world. And digitally, I will have to actually say this Asmodee digital game is one of their better ones. I'm not upset by the level of quality here, where I would tend to be a bit more upset with the Asmodee digital things. And I will also certainly point out that this game is a much better pick to turn into a digital product compared to something like Love Letter, where Love Letter was such a generic and simplistic game. Unless there was something I missed about it, it definitely felt very generic and simplistic, that after I'd played 4 or 5 games of Love Letter, I never had any interest in ever playing Love Letter again. Whereas I could actually see myself coming back and playing more of this. That's not completely beyond the realm of possibility in my mind. Although I wouldn't probably want to play it too much, and I'd probably be heavily pushed to play it more simply because it is being made because of the in-game achievements, which should still be Steam achievements, but at least there's in-game achievements, and one of the in-game achievements is win 60 online games. So I could see myself, if I just had a ton of free time, or just really felt like I was really having a lot of fun with Carcassonne, to try to play 60 online games. But I'm not having that much fun. 60 is a huge commitment. It is far too much of a commitment. Okay. I think I literally may have only one place I can do here. And interestingly here, I may just run out of meeple. There's not a lot going on with a basic game like this, so scoring while you're playing is the thing that's probably going to pay out in dividends. The field can help me a little bit, but Probably only so much. Hmm. Hmm. If I did that, that makes a dead square. So that might be a better move. If I did that, that potentially makes a dead square in that direction. Hmm. Is there any other options that would make some sense? No. I think not. Hmm. And since this is a simplistic, just basic version of playing Carcassonne, the rules are the same with just a different tile set. I can play with the field highlighter. I could probably play this way fairly easily too. Darn it. That is not what I wanted. I want to share half of my territory with the red. Alright, if I put this here, and then put this here, I'll probably get a couple points for that. We only have so many tiles left. Okay. Do we want to play here? Do we want to play there? Do we want to play here? If I was to put this here, could I get back to that? If I was to put this here, could I get back to that? Let's put this here. Could I get back to that? Yeah. My hope is that I can take over the field and win on the field exclusively. You do start in random positions every time you start a game, and it seems like there isn't a real way to change that. Somebody else did me a favor there. Right. Ooh. If I play this, that works actually fairly nicely. Is there any better choice to make? No. I think you take the points there. Although oddly, that didn't seem to let me place a meeple, so did I not have a meeple? I guess I didn't. I placed them all. And I guess that's an interesting aspect of how it's played, is that if you recover a meeple, you can't place a meeple. You have to place a meeple first, then scoring happens and you potentially recover a meeple. That I don't think does much for us. I don't think that does much for us. I don't think that does much. If I played this way, I could potentially score there. Or I could just put it here. Yeah, I think it's probably just easier to put it here and get another point for me. Potentially put another one here, get another point for me. You do also have this effect that I've just realized, so I guess it's pretty easy to ignore. But you have this snowing effect that I guess we could play one last time with the audio all the way up. You have this snow effect happening the whole time. I could definitely see not wanting to have to live with that while playing. So I'm at the second to lowest score. And so it's all going to come down to the fields and scoring. If we can beat 38, which is possible. Definitely feels possible. But yeah, you can also see how without that gingerbread man expansion here, there's nothing new. There really would be no reason to buy this. So I assume the gingerbread man comes with the winter expansion always. And I could almost see the argument that by selling the winter expansion this way, you are starting with a playable game, whereas I wouldn't be surprised if the other expansions required owning the base game. But if you just count the number of expansions, and we'll look at this more closely, I would argue the winter expansion could just have been adding the gingerbread man and gingerbread man rule set and tile set to the base Carcassonne game. Will this get me victory? We're tied for first right now. I think the answer is no. I think we're in second place, third place, probably fourth place. For Asmodee Digital, making digital versions of this probably made them have to spend more animation time than they probably would have liked, because now you have to redraw all of this. So overall, I was the second to worst with roads. I was the third worst, or yeah, third from the worst as far as monasteries. I was third from the worst as far as cities, and I was best with fields. That was it. Yeah. But if you think about it, let's just assume that the Abbot at some point is a free add-on that would have been added for like the 1 year anniversary, 2 year anniversary, 3 year anniversary of Carcassonne. So I would have to assume that that's what happened, is that Carcassonne sold a lot of copies. Maybe they sold over 1 million copies. Maybe 1 million is way too many for a board game. Maybe they only sold 100,000 and were more than happy at that. But I would have to assume the Abbot was something that would have been either almost free or free as an addition, whereas the River almost certainly is some expansion. Looking at the prices, I'd assume Carcassonne costs like $10, and then to get the River is somewhere around $4.99 at most. But I wouldn't be surprised if it actually was closer to $2.99. The Abbot could be like $1.99 expansion. And then when you get to like Inn and Cathedrals, I imagine that came out a year or two after the original game, and I could see that being another $10. And then I could see a year later Traders and Builders coming out, and that being another $10. And The Princess and the Dragon coming out, and that being another $10. But I still imagine you would want all of the expansions, however they were packaged in the real world, on the shelves, and you would just want like that kind of product. Although maybe you don't. Maybe you make a big bundle and you sell it for $50. But then the winter edition devalues all these other ones because you can't use these expansions, and it confuses the marketplace horribly. There are almost certainly people that would have bought the winter edition thinking they were getting they needed the original Carcassonne game, and there almost certainly are going to be a level of people that are irritated because the winter edition tiles can't technically by the rules be played with the regular edition of the game. Yep. And without the gingerbread man, which arguably the gingerbread man should be, again, a $2.99 expansion, there is really not anything different or any reason why you would buy the winter edition. So let's see if the gingerbread man concept somehow saves the day, but I seriously doubt it will. Yeah, I am imagining very little will happen here. So we have the gingerbread man here. If we look flat this way, we can see his little hat element. And this is a tile with a gingerbread man on it, so what I'm gonna do is just go ahead and assume that I can lock in and win a victory and immediately get an achievement for that. Alright. And then that means put the gingerbread man there. And he does the same, which lets him move it. Just everybody's going to chase after the gingerbread man for high scores. And it's not a terrible gameplay mechanic by any means. It's actually a very good idea. But it's not enough of an idea, I think, to justify a fresh start. And the just attempting to completely eliminate okay. So I placed a tile there that picked up the gingerbread man, and seemingly I now have to move him. So he's just going to move a lot. This is a faster movement of a secondary character compared to the dragon. That was kind of long. That the dragon having 6 moves seemed fairly extreme. Alright. If I put this here, I could cap off this area. If I put this here, yeah, I want to do this so I can play the field. I've unlocked Farmer Frenzy, which we'll see what happens there. It's gonna take seems like you're getting points for other reasons that I don't recognize with the gingerbread man. I think it's gonna take some real effort here, though, to really try and take ownership of this field. And I probably should just opt instead to, well, I guess I could have put one there. Should probably just opt to share, or hope to share. Should put that in a different place where it could have been placed there. Right. This way. Is that what we want to do? Is there any better location? No, I think that's good. We'll put one on this abbot. And we may have run low on gingerbread move tiles. Okay. What's the next thing I want to play? Let's probably just do that. Yep. We're approaching the halfway point. Which again, I think it would be nice if it set off a little firecracker to say, hey, this is the halfway point of the game. We recognize that and want to remind you that you've only got that much more time. Or a little bit more time. We did this. We couldn't connect there. We did that. Couldn't connect there. If we did that, we couldn't connect there. Probably would just make more sense to do something like that. And I'll just go ahead and claim this, even though odds are extremely low. We could win on scoring with the gingerbread man. Well, it seems like I'm severely limited as far as where I can place this. So let's put it here. Put one there. In the turn. You can't double click on tiles. That's the thing that really I think should happen, is you should be able to very conveniently double click on a tile and it should zoom up to the full size of the screen so you can see it. If we were to play here, or play here, or do we want to play somewhere else? And it feels like it would make a little bit more sense to try and cap off these ends. And I think we'll just hold on to our last meeple. Maybe that's a mistake, maybe it's not. Come on, keep on playing. Let's see. If I did that, I don't think that does anything particularly well for me. If I did that, that helps a whole bunch of other people. If I did that. Alright, one more time. Put another person here. If I'm gonna win, I'm putting all my chickens in the farmer basket. And winning this farm, or at least sharing the farm. I have nothing else I can do. I have 27 more cards to play also. Do I have anything? What in the world was that? Yeah, I'm noticing, I don't know if it's my computer, I don't know if it's my settings, because I kind of changed everything. I updated the BIOS, there's all kinds of weird things. But a couple times in the past month, I've had my computer just kind of hitch like that. And that seems weird. I don't think it's my computer overheating, though, because that would be weird. If I did that, that doesn't save me. If I did that, it potentially gives me more points, so I should just do that. But, and maybe you didn't even hear that, where the audio stuttered for a second. I'm not willing to blame that just directly on Asmodee Digital, although I will say Asmodee Digital games, I mean, they're made on the cheap, obviously. You're not going to really need to put a ton of quality assurance testing on a board game like this compared to like a AAA first-person shooter game. I'm sure that plenty of effort was put into this game, but oh, that is proven to be a mistake. But yeah, I could get 2 points there, or I could get a meeple back, and I think it makes way more sense to get a meeple back. Well, even if I did get this pink one, which seems like that's a lost cause, now there's so many other farms and places of influence. I think probably kind of back to square one. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if I'm in absolute last position. Okay. So, is there anything we can do to try and score? I think you take this one. I think that's your best bet. Take this one, put a meeple here, and do that. We have 14 more tiles. Oh, you know what's probably happening, come to think of it? I wouldn't be surprised if my backup is running right now. That's a possibility. And if my backup is running, and it backs up to a network hard drive, and it's scanning the hard drive, that would certainly make a stutter. Or could make a stutter at least. Right. Do we have something we could really benefit from as far as this? We have 8 more pieces. Best thing to do would be to roll this way. Do this. I don't have any meeples to play. Four more pieces. And we're at 26. There's a 27 and a 30 and a 27 here. Okay. If I put one down there, because I have no meeples, that's probably our best bet. Like playing that and helping another player doesn't do anything for that. Playing this and helping another player probably doesn't help with that. Whereas I will exclusively get some land here for just me. Okay. Starting at 26, so second, third worst. Unless we somehow score amazingly well here, which I don't see any way I really do. I've probably lost. But I'm fine with that too. Since there's not a lot of like deep emotional attachment to these tiles in the game, it's hard to get too worked up about winning or losing. The only real commitment I have to any game of Carcassonne is just the amount of time I put into it, and one game is taking at most an hour, so that's really not a lot. Whereas if I had spent, say, 30 hours playing a single game of this and then lost for what are, at least in some small part, random reasons, I might be more upset. What's funny is I'm talking about losing here, but the scoring seems to actually be going in my favor. Like, there, I may somehow have won here. Maybe tied for first? We'll see what the fields do. If yellow gets no field... Nope, green beat me. Red won out on that pink field at the last second. Yeah, all that fighting for that field, and that was only 18 points. Which clearly I focused too much on playing for field, when in-game scoring and cities are really where you should be. I can't help but feel, though, that the gingerbread man as a concept ran out of steam after the first 5 or 6 turns. Like, we had just played all the gingerbread cards, and there's nothing that specifically ensures that the gingerbread man as a character comes back and plays. Enough so that it probably would make more sense that there should be maybe a house rule that says once you go around the table, then the next player moves the gingerbread man. So the gingerbread man lands wherever at the first city to start with, then you go around the table, and then the first player who started gets to move the gingerbread man. Then the player to the left of that player moves the gingerbread when it goes around again. That would mean by the 6th turn, the 6th player gets their first move with the gingerbread, but also that might be to their advantage. Plus, you could still play with the same rule that once the gingerbread man is in a city that is completed, the player that completes the city could move it around, which would randomize it. So I was tied for worst as far as roads. I was the 3rd worst as far as monasteries. I had a decent amount of cities here. I was 2nd for cities, and I was 1st by far with gingerbread man. And if anything, that just highlights how the expansion's not that important. And then I was tied for worst as far as the field. Had I gained control of this player's field and gotten 18, that would have been 21, and taken away 21 there, or no, taken 18 away from that, that would have been 75 as a score. So had I gained control of the field, I probably would have won. Let's go back to the main menu, and then let's just wrap up. There is something that needs to be mentioned. At this point, we've played a total of 16 matches. We've won 5. Not a terrible win-loss ratio, really. It could definitely have been a lot worse. But winning 5 times with the tutorial might skew those numbers to start with. The number of lifetime points is not very useful. Number of finished cities overall is really not useful. These are definitely just going to be numbers that go up and up and up and have no real relevancy to anything. So it'll just be a number, and it'll just be like, okay, my numbers seems like it's big. And then weirdly, you don't have any counters for anything that is specifically an expansion thing. There's no gingerbread man, fairies, dragons, dragon counter. Anyways, what I started to say was, it should be mentioned that I have finally gotten around to actually buying Tabletop Simulator, and until I actually get around to playing it, there is that question of floating above my head around, could you be playing Carcassonne on Tabletop Simulator? Maybe it would be a little bit rougher and not have polished gameplay mechanics or polished visuals, but you could then have your friends in a virtual table, potentially playing multiple games instead of just Carcassonne, and you could have probably a better integrated voice chat system, and maybe even VR integration. And I think Tabletop Simulator might have that. And that's the question that always pops up in my head is, it's very possible that Tabletop Simulator does a good enough job to simulate the experience of sitting at a table and playing multiple tabletop games that there is not a real need to buy individual specialized bespoke games that simulate real world tabletop games, unless you really, really love it. And when you see that there's like 200 people online at any one point, there aren't that big of a player base of Carcassonne these days. So let's go through the achievements one last time just to show like we are either on the cusp of winning, or we could start playing against just aggressive AIs solely to defeat a bunch. It'd be fairly hard to just add 10 random players. It'd actually be super easy, but it would be kind of pathetic to add 10 random friends. When 1 online is fairly easy. When 15 online, it's a little harder. 45 is pretty hard, and 60 is rather hard, considering I've only played 15 games in total, and I've already had my fill. Completing 40 cities probably would, I guess, take another 20 games. So we need to play probably 60 games. Yeah. Another 20 games would get us... No, it wouldn't be 20 games to get 20 complete monasteries unless I really focused on that. Winning against 5 aggressive AIs is probably more difficult than it seems. Complete a road of at least 7 tiles. We could focus on that. Place the abbot in the garden 8 times. Could do that. Complete a city with more meeples than your opponent that occupies the same city. So, yeah. There would be a lot of playing here. Complete a city with a cathedral. You could do that. And you'd almost, since you need to play 60 online games, you'd almost try to play several online games with just this DLC expansion enabled, then play several games with just this DLC expansion, then just this one, then just this one. So you can focus down to the specific achievements you're trying to get done. But these are in-game achievements, so why even bother trying to get any of them done? Like, some of this is very much just a matter of time. And putting the effort into it. Yeah. What's funny is none of these expansions are that great. But I could definitely say that the best one is the Princess and the Dragon expansion. And the worst one is the solo winter expansion. With the river perhaps being the most pointless one, but also one that I could see people liking. A lot of achievements still. And for the winter gingerbread house expansion, we got just one thing. Made very little progress towards anything. Yeah, and I still don't understand why they started changing them from meeple to knights. Like, that may be the only reason why they actually did release the winter expansion, is so that they could just rewrite the text. And I could almost understand that there being somebody in some form complaining about the characters being called meeple, which is probably too close to sheeple, and being upset about that. And so turning them into knights makes some sense, but not enough sense to sell an entire new winter edition. Although in all fairness, all board games get down to that level where, yeah, you could certainly speed up the animation speed, or turn it off. And then I've had the thick outline on, and that has been fine. Auto zoom has been on this whole time, which I question that horribly because it doesn't seem like auto zoom was really working in most scenarios. But yeah. And then when you load this, it tries to load from the internet, I guess, and seems like maybe my backup is happening right now, and that's why this is not loading. Yeah, I probably have a few more Asmodee games to play and cover, and I will whenever I get around to them. But so far, this one's ending on a pretty good note. If you absolutely love Carcassonne and you want to play it digitally or play it online because you don't have any friends that will play it with you anymore in the real world, this is a good alternative. Plus, I'm sure there's a mobile phone or at least iPad version of this that would probably be even a better thought, certainly, instead of playing it on a PC. But if you don't have a tablet or a cell phone, or if you really just want it on the big screen, it works well on Steam, with the one main complaint of it not integrating into Steam achievements and requiring you to log into a third-party account. That's always annoying. But it plays fine, and Carcassonne is a better game, in my opinion, than like Ticket to Ride, where Ticket to Ride is kind of a fine game, but it's a little too slow in many scenarios. If anything, I think Carcassonne now probably has too many expansions for its own good, and really the digital version should just be a bundle of everything, and they probably should be selling Carcassonne as a bundle of all the expansions, or at least all the pre-winter expansions. I would say this is way better than Love Letter as a game, because Love Letter was far too simplistic a concept, and I don't have any other Asmodee digital games I can think of off the top of my head, so either they were forgettable or I blocked them out in blind rage. Alright, well, that's going to be it for this series. Just end on the basics. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me even further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and get me a game off my wish list or gift card. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.